Story time.
I didn't mean to create a frog cult. I named the first one Cletus, after a guy my dad used to buy pills from. It felt right. Greasy name. Like something that would survive the apocalypse by crawling into a crawl space and licking the mold off copper pipes. Cletus stared at me through the glass like he knew I was broken. Like he approved. Dumpy tree frog. Littoria caerulea, if you're trying to impress a vet tech. People call them dumpy like that's an insult, like their weight's a problem. These frogs don't give a shit. They sag and spread and cling to your window like a melted scoop of pistachio ice cream with eyes. You ever see something that ugly and just feel better? Cuban tree frogs are already here. They came first. They get into your toilets and eat the local ones and probably your happiness too. Nobody invited them, but they're winning. I thought, if Florida's going to be swallowed whole, maybe it should be by something with a face like Cletus. I didn't plan to breed them. One day I had a frog. A week later I had 2. Then 20. Then the bathroom sounded like an alien sex swamp. If the neighbors heard the noises, they never knocked. Florida people know when to look away. I was one croak away from an eviction. The tadpoles lived in takeout containers. The feeders took over the cereal shelf. One morning, I woke up with a frog on my eyelid like a warning label that grew legs. That's when I realized I wasn't collecting them. They were multiplying through me, like I was just the host. Florida's already invasive. Hell, even the weather's invasive. The snowbirds are invasive. Half the plants are colonial holdovers. Every lizard looks like it escaped from a reptile expo and developed a nicotine addiction. Like evolution just gave up halfway through. People come here to rot in peace. It's like the whole state is a hospice for ecosystems. So, I thought, if the apocalypse is already happening, why not curate it? If it's already broken, why not break it on purpose? Why not fill the cracks with something soft? Release Site 1 was behind a Wawa. I brought a 5-gallon bucket full of juvenile frogs. Didn't bring a speech, just tilted the bucket and let them go. I picked a spot near a drainage canal where the ground squished like it was chewing and the water smelled like rusted teeth. The frogs didn't rush out like a prison. They just sat there. One blinked. One climbed on the lid of the bucket and looked back at me like, "Are you sure?" Of course I wasn't sure, but I needed to believe in something, so I said, "Go make Florida tolerable." I didn't expect anyone to notice. I thought they'd vanish into the mold like everything else. But then I saw one at CVS, stuck to the red box machine like it was picking a movie. One sat in a broken bird bath behind a Walgreens like it was baptizing mosquitoes. I saw one perched on a shopping cart half sunk in a canal riding the rusted skeleton of corporate afterbirth. And then I started thinking, maybe they're working. I started releasing more. Parking lots, hotel fountains, golf course ponds, behind dentist offices, under dumpsters, besides roadkill. Any place that felt forgotten or doomed. Church, but for frogs. I didn't leave notes. I didn't ask permission. I just showed up, let go, moved on. Just tipped the buckets and watched them crawl out like tiny monks on a pilgrimage. They spread. Then people started noticing. I'd see them at night, one plastered to a bus stop ad for lip filler, another watching traffic from the shadow of a Waffle House sign. They weren't hiding anymore. They were present, like mold, but with intent. Well, I kept breeding. More than I could handle, actually. Egg clutches stacking up in the fridge next to old yogurt and nicotine patches. Feeder insects escaping into the vents. Tadpoles living in a mason jar on the toilet tank. The bathroom floor squished, so I stopped fighting it. I stopped going to work, too. I didn't have time, and I didn't really care. They needed me. I told myself this was fine, necessary, holy even. But something shifted. The new batch. They weren't like the old ones. One frog with too many toes, another with a second sealed mouth under its chin. One blinked sideways and then didn't stop blinking, like it was trying to remember something that it hadn't lived yet. One croaked and I swear the window shook. The water smelled different, thicker, like mildew and static electricity. I checked the pH, the ammonia, all normal. But something was off. I started wearing gloves, but my skin still itched. I started waking up congested, coughing out something translucent and green. I blamed it on the mold, but it wasn't mold. Mold doesn't hum. I wore gloves, then I wore a mask. Then I stopped caring. One morning I woke up coughing and pulled a clump of green film out of my throat. I didn't go to the hospital. Didn't want it on record. One night I stood in front of the mirror, and that's when I saw it. The skin behind my ears, softening, greening, like steamed spinach clinging to the bone. My pupils, they were wrong too. Wider, like they'd been soaking in something warm. My body didn't hurt though, and that's what scared me. Change should feel like violence. This felt like surrender. It started with the throat. Not pain, not swelling, just pressure, a fullness, like a balloon inflating behind my Adam's apple. I'd be walking through the cereal aisle, and without meaning to, I'd let out a sound. Low, wet, guttural, a croak. But not ugly, not human either. It vibrated. Something in the store lights flickered. I looked around, ready to apologize, but no one was staring. Not exactly, anyway. A woman near the yogurt section turned. She blinked like she'd just come out of a dream, smiled at me. Not the polite kind of smile, the hungry kind. I croaked again. She dropped her basket. It kept happening. I'd find myself alone in parks after dark, crouched near retention ponds, croaking into the still air. Not calling for help, just calling. And they came. Women. Dozens. Some in heels. Some barefoot. Some in sundresses. Others in work scrubs. Drawn like moths to humidity. They'd walk slow, eyes wide, limbs loose. One knelt on the grass, palms flat to the mud. Another crouched beside her. Knees splayed, mouth slack. All of them, watching me, silent. Their pupils shimmered, swirled, but no one spoke. There was something in me now, something broadcasting. The pheromones? Maybe. The croaking? Sure. But it was more than that. It was the way I smelled like algae and knew the names of every wet ditch in the county. It was the way I glowed under gas station lights. It was power. And I didn't need to understand it, to use it. He came in through the wrong door. Nobody ever used the East Gate. Too dramatic. But there he was. Robe torn. Wrists leaking light. Eyes like dawn after a hangover. I almost laughed. Lost? I asked, flicking ash off my tongue. Or did Daddy send you to clean up his mess? He didn't answer, just stood there, taking it all in. The sulfur pits, the screams, the centuries of rot. The way time here folds like broken wings. And me. The one he threw out like a dog for asking questions. And now the golden boy's here, looking sorry. He finally stepped forward, slow, like the floor might bite. Didn't flinch at the heat, didn't look away from me. 3 days, he said. His voice didn't echo here. Nothing does. Just landed like a pebble in a dry well. That's how long they say I'll be here. 40 days in the desert. 3 days in hell. My father's very fond of numbers. Lou stirred a bone through the ash between them, tracing slow, uneven spirals. As if drawing circles around a point no one dared say out loud. Time, he said. Time's loose down here, slips off the bone easily. The visitor looked around, not at the flames or the bones. He looked at the quiet things, the corners where old prayers go to die, the places where no one's screaming anymore because they gave up on being heard. Lou tapped the bone against his knee. 3 days, huh? That's what they gave you. A weekend pass. No answer, just that look. Heavy, human, or something like it. They send you to pick up the righteous, or just to take inventory of the damned? The visitor finally spoke. Do you remember what it was like before the fall? Lou's smile cracked sideways. Every day. That's the curse. He exhaled smoke that didn't rise. They always said I'd choose this, that I rebelled, but they never asked what I was rebelling against. His eyes cut back to the visitor. You ever ask him that?
Your father?
The visitor looked at him for a long time, not with pity, not with judgment, just knowing. Like he'd already heard the question 100 different ways from 100 different mouths. I asked him, the visitor said, soft as ash. And he was silent. Lou tilted his head, slow, like he was listening for a lie between the words. Your father, he speaks in plagues and parables, but when he's silent, what scripture do you carve from that? Did it sound like love? Or did it just sound like absence dressed in loneliness? The visitor looked down at his feet. The light at his wrists had dimmed. It sounded like the wind moving through a house that no one lives in anymore. Lou watched him for a moment, unreadable. Then he gave a dry little laugh. Just breath and teeth. Poetic, he said. Bet the apostles eat that up. The visitor didn't flinch, didn't try to explain himself. He just let the words settle, like dust that didn't care where it landed. I didn't come here to be heard, he said. I came to listen. Lou's smile faltered just a little. He twirled the bone in his fingers. Is this his idea of closure? Send you to look at the thing he left behind? Is this what he calls mercy now?
Sending you to face what he couldn't?
The visitor shook his head. He didn't send me. That answer hung in the air like smoke with nowhere to go. Lou stopped twirling the bone, just held it. So what? He said, not quite smiling. You're freelance now? No orders, no prophecy, no burning bush? He looked the visitor over again. Then why are you here? The visitor looked up at nothing, at the ceiling of hell, at a place where no stars hung. Because it never made sense, he said, that he cast you down and left me nailed up. Lou laughed, bitter and dry. They burned churches in your name. They built them in spite of mine. I spoke of love, the visitor said, and they turned it into conquest. You asked for truth, and they called it betrayal. Lou leaned back like the words had teeth. The silence between them stretched long, coiled. You pity me? He asked. No, the visitor said. I understand you. He looked into the ash, then spoke again. He couldn't help yapping in parables. There were 2 sons. One obeyed in silence. The other spoke in anger. But both stood outside their father's house when the door finally closed. There was a harp with 1 broken string. The musician cursed it, said it ruined the song, but when the wind still moved through it, and the sound it made was truer than any melody that they had ever played, he knew it felt right. A candle once blamed its shadow for being dark, but the shadow said, You made me. And the flame said nothing at all, just kept burning until they both were gone. The last word hadn't even left his mouth before the sound cut through, a faint sizzle like rain falling on coils. The visitor faltered, mid-breath, mid-parable. He looked down. Drops of molten orange spat against the ash, burning tiny holes into the dust. Then he looked up. Lou wasn't looking at him anymore. His jaw was tight, eyes flickering, brimstone bright, and from the corner of those eyes, tears. Not soft, not human, flaming. Each one searing its way out, dripping like punishment. Enough, Lou said. Quiet. Not a shout. Just the kind of word that stops heaven in its tracks. You came down here. You spill riddles and metaphors like incense, and maybe you think they smell like mercy. He turned to face the visitor full on.
They don't.
They smell like smoke from a house I watched burn. The visitor didn't answer right away, didn't offer another parable, didn't reach for comfort. He just stepped forward. Closer than anyone had in eons. Close enough to feel the heat bleeding off Lou's skin. I didn't come here to teach you anything, he said, his voice low, real. I came to ask forgiveness. Lou didn't look at him, not at first, just stared into the dirt, the places where the ash still smoked. For what? He asked. For what he did to you, the visitor said. For what we both lost because of it. I've carried that weight longer than the cross. If forgiveness means anything at all, it has to reach even you. If I died for sins, then I too died for the sins of my father. Silence again, but this time it held something different. Not hollow, not damning. Just space. Room for something that hadn't lived here in a long time. Maybe ever. Something lighter sat between them now. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. Lou exhaled. No smoke this time, just air. Careful, he said. That kind of talk might get you thrown out of heaven. The visitor smiled. Only a little, only for a second. And then he turned and walked toward the east gate, toward the place no one ever entered. I didn't have to ask if he'd be back. He knew the way now.